Chapter 1. The Child of the Bamboo Grove. The bamboo grove swayed like a sea of emerald spears, each stalk clattering in rhythm with the wind. Somewhere within that forest of green, a boy was born beneath a crimson dawn. His mother named him Wudi, the Unconquered. It was a name she whispered not with pride, but with hope, for the world beyond the grove was cruel and merciless. Wudi's earliest memories were not of play, but of silence. His father, a hunter, vanished before he could walk. His mother worked tirelessly in the rice paddies of the valley, her hands cracked and blistered, her body bowed from toil. And yet, when she told him stories by the fire, her voice carried a strange strength. There was once a man, she would begin, who faced the heavens themselves and did not kneel. That is what it means to be unconquered, my son. Not to never fall, but to never stay down. Wudi listened, his wide eyes reflecting the dancing flame. The words seeped into him like rain into the roots of bamboo. The boy grew restless as he aged. He would wander into the forest, testing himself against nature. He climbed cliffs, bruising his knees. He chased wild boars, breath ragged in his chest. He once tried to catch a hawk by leaping from a tree branch, only to land flat on his back, laughing through the pain. One evening, while roaming too far into the woods, he stumbled upon something strange, a ruined shrine hidden among vines. Its stone face was eroded, its guardian statues toppled, but within the cracked altar burned a faint, bluish flame. It should not have been possible. The air smelled of rain, though the sky was clear. Compelled, Wudi stepped closer. As he reached toward the flame, a whisper brushed against his mind. Unconquered, will you remain so when the world bends against you? The voice was neither male nor female, neither kind nor cruel. Wudi froze, heart pounding. He wanted to run, but instead, he clenched his fists. I don't know, he whispered aloud. But I will try. The flame flared, and for an instant, he saw visions, armies clashing beneath banners, rivers turning red, cities burning. And at the center of it all, he saw himself, older, standing tall amid chaos. When the vision faded, the flame died with it. The shrine fell silent, as if it had never awakened. Wudi returned home that night changed. He said nothing to his mother, but he carried the voice within him. He could not yet know that this encounter marked the first step of a long road, one that would lead him from the bamboo grove to the throne of an empire, through trials that would break all but the unbreakable. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to my channel so you won't miss more eerie and fascinating tales. Chapter 2. Whispers in the Mountain Temple. The seasons turned, and Wudi grew from a boy of curious eyes into a young man of restless limbs. His mother, though proud of his vigor, worried at the fire in him. He worked the fields dutifully, yet his gaze always wandered toward the distant mountains, where mists curled like sleeping dragons. It was said that deep within those peaks stood a temple as old as the stars, where monks whispered to spirits and trained their bodies to be unyielding as stone. Few villagers spoke of it aloud, and fewer still dared the path that wound upward through cliffs and storms. But Wudi could not ignore the pull. One evening, after the harvest festival, he lingered at the edge of the valley. Lanterns floated into the night sky behind him, carrying wishes. His mother's wish was always the same, that her son find peace. Wudi's was different. He looked toward the mountains and whispered, I will find the voice that called me. And so, before dawn, he set out alone. The climb was merciless. The path narrowed to jagged ledges where one misstep meant death. Rain lashed down, chilling him to the bone. His hands bled from gripping stone. Hunger gnawed at him. Yet each time he faltered, he remembered the whisper at the ruined shrine, will you remain unconquered when the world bends against you? He pressed on. At last, half-starved and shivering, he stumbled into a plateau where the mist parted to reveal a temple carved directly into the mountainside. Its gates were simple, yet carried an aura of timelessness. Bells chimed faintly, though no wind stirred. Monks emerged, men with shaved heads and calm eyes, their robes plain but dignified. They regarded the stranger with silence. Wudi bowed clumsily, his knees trembling. I seek strength, he managed, voice hoarse. And truth. The eldest monk, whose beard was white as snow, studied him. For a long moment, Wudi feared they would turn him away. Then, The old man spoke. Strength is found in struggle. Truth is found in silence. Do you accept both? Wudi nodded. And so began his training. The temple life was harsher than the mountain path. He rose before dawn to sweep endless courtyards. He carried buckets of water until his arms burned. He meditated for hours, his legs aching, his mind rebelling with restless thoughts. When he faltered, the monks offered neither praise nor scorn. They simply watched, as though waiting to see whether he would endure. At night, beneath flickering lanterns, the elder monks taught him forms of combat, movements flowing like rivers, strikes sharp as thunder. Wudi struggled. His body was strong but undisciplined, his will fiery but unfocused. Many times, he struck the floor in frustration. But always, he rose again. Months became years. Slowly, the wild boy of the bamboo grove became something more. His body hardened, his spirit sharpened. Yet what changed most was not his strength, but his silence. He began to hear the rhythm of his own breath, the whisper of leaves, the quiet song of the world around him. One night, during deep meditation, the vision returned. Flames. Banners. Screams. And himself, standing in the storm of war. But this time, the whisper was clearer. Unconquered one, the world moves toward fire. When the gates fall, will you flee or will you stand? Wudi's eyes snapped open, sweat beading on his brow. The temple bell tolled in the distance. He knew then that his time in the mountain would not last forever. The world was calling. Chapter 3, The First Trial of Fire and Steel. The seasons on the mountain were merciless. Winter froze the stones, summer burned the skin, and autumn brought storms that rattled even the stoutest walls of the temple. Yet through it all, Wudi endured. By now, his body bore the marks of training, scars across his arms, calluses on his hands, muscles hardened like oak. But strength alone was not enough. The monks reminded him constantly, a wild flame burns bright, and dies quickly. To endure, one must become both flame and stone. Wudi tried to understand. But his heart still ached for challenge, for proof of his progress. He could spar with the other disciples, but their strikes, however precise, no longer pushed him to his limits. The elder monk with the snow-white beard must have seen this restlessness, for one dawn he summoned Wudi to the courtyard. You wish to measure yourself, the elder said. Then you shall face the trial of fire and steel. Wudi bowed, pulse quickening. I accept. That evening, the courtyard was lit with torches. The other disciples gathered in silence, their faces unreadable. From the temple's inner hall came two monks clad in black, their movements as fluid as shadows. They carried wooden staves bound in iron. These are not your brothers, the elder intoned. Tonight, they are your trial. They will strike without hesitation. To endure, you must be more than strength, you must be balance, discipline, will. If you falter, you will fall. The gong sounded. The black-robed monks moved like lightning. Their staves whistled through the air. Wudi barely raised his arms in time, the impact jolting him backward. Pain rippled through his bones. But he did not retreat. He surged forward, fists clenched. Blow met blow, wood cracked against flesh. Sparks flew from the iron-bound staves. Wudi's strikes were raw, fueled by ferocity, but the monk's counters were precise, flowing like water around his fire. Soon he was bleeding from a cut at his brow, his breath ragged. The whispers of doubt crept in. They are faster. They are sharper. I cannot. Then the elder's words returned, a wild flame burns bright, and dies quickly. Wudi forced himself still. He slowed his breath, grounded his stance. The next strike came, he let it pass. The next sweep, he bent with it, like bamboo in the wind. His body stopped fighting the rhythm and began to flow with it. And suddenly, he saw the opening. With a roar, he struck, fist like a hammer. The first monk stumbled back. The second lunged, but Wudi pivoted, using his opponent's momentum to send him crashing to the ground. Silence fell. Wudi stood in the torchlight, chest heaving, sweat mingling with blood. His hands shook, but his spirit did not. He had not conquered the monks, he had conquered himself. The elder stepped forward, eyes gleaming. You have passed the first trial. But remember, Wudi, fire and steel may win battles. To win the war within, you must master more. Wudi bowed, humbled, yet a fire still burned within him. This was only the beginning. Chapter 4, The Oath Beneath the Stars. The mountain temple taught Wudi discipline, but it also taught him patience. Weeks passed into months, and though his body grew sharper, his spirit wrestled with questions. One night, after the trial of fire and steel, he sat alone on the temple roof. The world below stretched in silence, valleys cloaked in darkness, rivers gleaming faintly like threads of silver. Above him, the heavens blazed with 1,000 stars. And yet, the vision returned, cities aflame, banners torn, rivers red. When the gates fall, will you flee or will you stand? The whisper haunted him. He could not ignore it. Footsteps approached. It was Mylin, a fellow disciple, quiet but watchful. She carried a lantern, its glow soft against her sharp features. You climb higher each night, she said. Do you seek the stars, or to escape them? Wudi hesitated. Both, perhaps. The world below feels distant. Yet I know it waits for me. Mylin studied him. The temple trains us to endure, but endurance is not purpose. What is it you seek, truly? Wudi gazed at the stars. I seek to remain unconquered. But what does that mean, when the world itself demands surrender? She smiled faintly. Then perhaps you must give it your own meaning. That night, Wudi stayed long after Mylin left. He thought of his mother, bent over the fields. He thought of the ruined shrine, the flame, the voice that called him. He thought of the countless unseen battles waiting beyond the mountain. And so, beneath the vast sky, he made his oath. I do not know what fate awaits me. But I will not bow to fear, nor flee from the storm. If the world bends against me, I will stand. This, I swear to the stars, to the earth, to my own unyielding heart. The wind stirred, carrying the scent of pine. For an instant, the stars seemed to burn brighter, as if listening. The next morning, his training resumed as always, sweeping, meditating, sparring, but something in Wudi had changed. His strikes carried more focus. His silences stretched deeper. Even the elder monk seemed to notice, his eyes narrowing with quiet approval. Yet beyond the temple, beyond the mountains, forces were already stirring. Far to the east, warlords sharpened their swords. To the north, armies gathered under a crimson banner. And in the imperial capital, whispers of rebellion spread like wildfire. The storm Wudi had seen in his visions was no longer distant. It was moving closer. And soon, the mountain would no longer be high enough to shield him. Chapter 5, The Scholar and the Warrior. Years passed in the mountain temple, and Wudi's name became whispered with respect among the disciples. He was no longer the reckless boy of the bamboo grove, but a man tempered by struggle. Yet even the strongest steel must be tested beyond the forge. One autumn morning, a caravan arrived at the temple gates. It was unusual, few outsiders dared the perilous path. The monks received them with courtesy, though the travelers bore troubling news. Rebellion had broken out in the eastern provinces. Warlords marched beneath banners of blood, and the empire trembled. Among the caravan was a scholar named Zhao Yun, tall and thin, with a gaze like sharp glass. Unlike the weary merchants, Zhao carried no wares. He sought not trade, but truth. That evening, the monks allowed Zhao to sit with them in council. Wudi, curious, lingered nearby. The empire crumbles, Zhao said, voice steady. The court is weak, the provinces restless. Soon, blades will decide what law cannot. But war alone cannot mend what is broken. It will take vision. It will take men who can stand against chaos without becoming chaos themselves. His words struck Wudi like an arrow. He stepped forward, unable to remain silent. And who are such men? Kings? Generals? Zhao's eyes flicked to him. Perhaps neither. Perhaps someone who has learned both restraint and strength. Someone who knows suffering, yet does not yield to it. The elder monk's gaze lingered on Wudi, but he said nothing. In the weeks that followed, Zhao remained at the temple, speaking with the monks, debating philosophy, sharing tales of distant lands. Wudi found himself drawn to him. Zhao was unlike the disciples, his weapon was not the fist, but the mind. His words could cut sharper than a blade, yet they also revealed paths Wudi had never considered. One night, as they walked along the cliff's edge, Wudi asked, "Why seek men like me, Zhao? Why climb this mountain, when war waits below?" Zhao smiled faintly. "Because strength without wisdom is destruction. And wisdom without strength is helplessness. But together, they can forge destiny." Wudi was silent. His oath beneath the stars echoed within him. Their bond deepened, two different spirits, one forged in steel, the other in ink. Where Wudi saw the world as trial and battle, Zhao saw it as patterns and tides. Yet together, they began to dream of something greater, a land no longer crushed by endless warlords, but united beneath a vision of endurance. But dreams do not remain untouched for long. One night, the temple bells tolled. Smoke rose from the valley below. A village had been attacked, its homes burned, its people slain by raiders who served a northern warlord. Survivors staggered up the mountain, their cries piercing the night. The monks gathered in silence. Some spoke of compassion, of tending the wounded. Others whispered of detachment, of letting the world below burn as it always had. But Wudi's fists clenched. The oath in his heart roared. He turned to Zhao. "This storm, it has come to our gates." Zhao's eyes glimmered. "Then the time has come to choose. Will you remain here, safe among the clouds, or descend, and risk being consumed by the fire?" Wudi knew his answer. The path of the unconquered could not remain bound to stone walls. Chapter 6, Shadows of the Silent Court. The decision was made. Wudi descended the mountain with Zhao Yun at his side, leaving behind the safety of the temple. The elder monks did not stop him, they merely bowed, as though they had always known this moment would come. The world below was harsher than Wudi remembered. Villages smoldered, fields lay fallow, and fear clung to the people like a shadow. Yet amidst the chaos, whispers persisted of a court still standing at the empire's heart, though its walls were crumbling. "The emperor is a figurehead," Zhao explained as they traveled. "The court is ruled by ministers too busy with schemes to protect the people. They speak of loyalty, yet sharpen daggers behind silk screens. If we are to change the fate of this land, we must walk among them." After many weeks, they reached the imperial capital. Its gates loomed high, carved with dragons, but within, the grandeur was fading. Streets bustled with soldiers, merchants, and beggars alike. Palaces gleamed, yet hunger gnawed just beyond their walls. Through connections Zhao had cultivated, they gained entry to the silent court, a council chamber where decisions of the empire were whispered, not declared. It was a hall of masks. Ministers dressed in silks debated with honeyed words, but Wudi saw the truth in their eyes: fear, ambition, greed. They spoke of protecting the provinces, yet bartered them like dice in a game. Zhao moved among them with ease, trading words sharper than steel. Wudi, though unpolished, stood like a mountain at his side, silent, watchful. His presence unsettled the courtiers, who mocked him as a brute. Yet when one minister sneered, Wudi's gaze silenced him more effectively than any blade. One night, in a hidden garden lit by lanterns, Zhao spoke plainly. "These men will not save the empire. They care for power, not people. If the land is to endure, it will need strength from beyond these walls." Wudi clenched his fists. "Then why stay among them?" "Because sometimes, to change the course of the river, one must know every stone beneath its waters." Not all within the court were corrupt. Among the shadows, Wudi encountered a few kindred spirits, a young minister named Liang, whose loyalty to the people had not yet been crushed, and a woman known only as Lady Qiao, whose influence stretched far beyond her polite smile. They spoke cautiously, hinting at alliances yet to be forged. Wudi listened, though trust came hard. But danger grew closer. One evening, as Wudi and Zhao left the court, assassins struck. Cloaked in black, blades flashing, they moved with deadly silence. Wudi reacted on instinct, steel met flesh, fists shattered bone. He fought like the mountain storm, each strike decisive. When the last assassin fell, Zhao knelt beside him. His robe was torn, but his gaze was steady. "The storm has followed us here," he said. And the court is not blind to your presence. They know you are no ordinary wanderer. Wudi looked toward the palace walls, where lanterns flickered like watchful eyes. The silent court had seen his strength. Some would fear it. Others would seek to use it. And in that dangerous balance, the path of the unconquered would grow even more perilous. Chapter 7: The River Dragon's Bargain. The silent court whispered, but the empire bled. Rebellions spread like fire through dry grass, and warlords carved their names into the land with steel. Zhao Yun urged patience, diplomacy, and alliances. But Wudi, restless as thunder, longed for action. Their chance came in the south. Rumors reached the court of a warlord who sought to dam the great Serpent River, choking villages downstream to starve them into submission. The emperor's ministers squabbled, too afraid to send armies. Wudi could not stand idle. I swore beneath the stars I would not flee from the storm, he told Zhao. If the court will not act, then I must. Zhao, ever the strategist, simply nodded. Then we go to the river. But remember, sometimes strength alone cannot win the day. The journey south took weeks. When at last they reached the riverbanks, Wudi felt its power. The Serpent River was vast, its waters coiling like a living thing, its surface glinting with moonlight. Villagers knelt at its edge, praying not to gods but to the river dragon, the ancient spirit said to dwell within its depths. That night, as mist rose from the waters, Wudi walked alone along the bank. The whispers came again, not from flame this time, but from water. Unconquered one, you seek to stand against the warlord. But the river does not yield to mortals. Will you pay the price it demands? The waters churned, and from their depths rose a vast shape, scales like molten silver, eyes as deep as storm clouds. The river dragon. It spoke without sound, its voice echoing inside Wudi's chest. Men have always fought upon my banks. Kings and peasants alike have bled into my waters. Why should I favor you? Wudi stood firm, though the ground trembled beneath the dragon's coils. I do not ask for favor. I ask only for the chance to protect those who cannot fight for themselves. The dragon's eyes narrowed. Noble words. But rivers flow with more than kindness. They demand balance. What will you offer, unconquered one, if I grant you my strength? For a moment, Wudi hesitated. He thought of his oath beneath the stars, of his mother's weary hands, of Zhao's sharp wisdom. Then he bowed deeply. My will. My endurance. As long as I draw breath, I will carry the burden you give me. The dragon's roar shook the night. Mist swirled, wrapping around Wudi like chains of water, then seeping into his skin. Pain lanced through him, burning and freezing all at once. But he did not fall. When the mist cleared, the dragon was gone. Only the river remained, calm and glimmering. In Wudi's chest, a new strength pulsed, a bond with the river itself. The next day, the warlord's men came to claim the dam. They marched with spears and arrogance, their banners red against the sky. Villagers scattered in fear. Wudi stepped forward, alone at first. The soldiers laughed until the river rose. Water surged at his command, sweeping through enemy ranks, breaking spears, toppling riders. Wudi moved with it, his strikes carrying the force of crashing waves. The villagers rallied, Zhao directing them with swift strategy. By nightfall, the warlord's men fled, their banners drowned in the serpent's depths. As dawn broke, the villagers hailed Wudi not only as warrior, but as protector. Yet Zhao's voice was sober. You have made a bargain with forces beyond men. Power is never free, Wudi. Remember this. Wudi gazed at the river, its surface rippling like a secret smile. In his heart, he felt both strength and weight. The dragon had granted him power. But at what cost? Chapter 8: The Siege of 9 Gates. The victory at the Serpent River spread swiftly. Stories of the unconquered warrior who fought with the strength of storms and rivers carried from village to village. Some called him hero, others sorcerer. To the court in the capital, his name was both hope and threat. But hope alone could not stop war. In the west, the warlord Lord Han of 9 Gates rose like a shadow. His fortress controlled the trade routes between provinces, and his cruelty was unmatched. He hung the bodies of dissenters from the walls of his citadel, leaving them as warnings to all who passed. If Han is not stopped, Zhao Yun said gravely, he will choke the empire's heart. His fortress is a dagger at the throat of every province. Wudi clenched his fists. Then we break the dagger. The march to 9 gates was grueling. Wudi and Zhao gathered not an army, but a band of volunteers, farmers, hunters, refugees hardened by loss. They carried little more than courage and desperation. Against Han's trained soldiers, it was madness. Yet Zhao had a plan. The fortress of 9 gates was built to withstand armies, he explained as they camped beneath the shadow of its walls. But no wall is without weakness. We cannot match them in strength, so we must use their own pride against them. Wudi listened, but his gaze lingered on the towering gates, each one ironclad, each one barred. He knew there would be no victory without blood. At dawn, the battle began. Han's soldiers poured from the fortress, confident in their numbers. Wudi met them head-on, his strikes carrying the force of rivers, his presence unyielding as a mountain. Villagers fought at his side, their fear burned away by his defiance. Meanwhile, Zhao directed the flanks, using fire and smoke to drive confusion into the enemy's ranks. Small victories built momentum, and by dusk, they had driven Han's forces back behind the gates. But the fortress itself remained sealed. Its towers loomed, its walls unbroken. That night, as torches flickered against the stone, Wudi stood before his weary companions. We came not as conquerors, but as protectors. If we fall here, the empire falls with us. I will not yield. Will you? Exhausted as they were, voices rose in answer, no. The final assault came with the rising sun. While Zhao led a feint at the southern gate, Wudi and a chosen few scaled the northern cliffs under cover of mist. Arrows rained down, blades clashed, but Wudi pressed on, climbing higher, each movement driven by his oath. At last, he reached the battlements. With a roar, he crashed through the defenders, his fists breaking shields, his will unshaken. He seized the chains of the northern gate and pulled. Muscles screamed, blood ran, but he did not let go. With a thunderous groan, the gate tore open. The villagers surged forward, storming into the fortress. By nightfall, 9 gates had fallen. Lord Han was slain, his banners burned, his fortress freed. The people hailed Wudi as a hero. Yet as the smoke cleared, Zhao's warning lingered. Each victory makes your name louder, the scholar said. And the louder it becomes, the more the court will fear you. The warlords are not the only ones watching. Wudi looked to the horizon, where fires burned in distant provinces. He had won a battle. But the war was only beginning. Chapter 9, The Broken Sword, the Unbroken Will. The fall of 9 gates sent shockwaves through the land. Villagers whispered of the unconquered warrior who defied armies, and rebels rallied to his cause. But where the people saw hope, the warlords saw a threat, and so too did the imperial court. Letters arrived from the capital, gilded with seals of crimson. The ministers wrote in velvet words, "Return to the court. Accept our titles. Serve beneath the emperor, and together we shall restore peace." Zhao Yun warned him. They do not seek to honor you. They seek to bind you. Wudi shook his head. If peace can be forged, I will go. But I will not kneel to chains. The journey back to the capital was heavy with unease. Along the road, Wudi saw the cost of endless war, villages blackened by fire, children begging for food, men broken from conscription. He carried these sights in silence, his resolve hardening. At last, they reached the imperial palace. Its marble halls glittered, its courtyards filled with silken robes. But behind the beauty lay rot. Ministers bowed with smiles that did not touch their eyes. The emperor, frail and hidden behind veils, spoke little. Instead, the court demanded, "Disband your followers. Lay down your arms. Pledge loyalty, and we shall grant you rank, wealth, land." Wudi's answer was calm, but it struck like thunder. "I fight not for land, nor for gold, nor for crowns. I fight so the people need not bow to fear. If that offends you, so be it." The court murmured with anger. That night, treachery struck. Assassins poured into the guest chambers. The clash was sudden, brutal. Wudi fought like a storm, fists breaking blades, his roar shaking the halls. But numbers overwhelmed them. Zhao Yun was wounded, blood staining his scholar's robes. Loyal companions fell one by one. Wudi himself was driven to his knees, his sword shattered in his hands. For a moment, the vision returned, flames, banners, rivers red. The whisper pressed against his mind. Unconquered, will you still stand when all is broken? With a cry, Wudi rose. He cast aside the broken sword and fought with nothing but his hands, his will. The assassins faltered, shaken by his fury. By dawn, the palace floor was littered with bodies. Wudi stood blooded, unarmed, yet unbroken. But the cost was heavy. Zhao Yun lay dying. Wudi knelt beside him, gripping his friend's hand. You said wisdom and strength together could forge destiny, Wudi whispered. Zhao smiled faintly, his breath shallow. And so it shall. You will carry both. My words, my vision, live on in you. His hand went still. Wudi bowed his head, grief striking deeper than any blade. Yet even in loss, the oath in his heart did not waver. He had no sword. He had lost his brother in spirit. But his will remained unconquered. And now, more than ever, he knew, the empire itself must be reborn, or it would devour all. Chapter 10, The Emperor of Endless Horizons. The palace was stained with blood, but Wudi did not stay. With Zhao Yun's body laid to rest beneath the mountain pines, he left the silent court behind. The ministers whispered curses, the emperor hid behind his veils, but the people began to call his name as if it were a prayer. Villages welcomed him with tears of gratitude. Farmers offered grain, hunters offered their bows. Broken men found courage at his side. From province to province, banners rose, not of gold, not of dragon crests, but of a single character painted on plain cloth, Wu, the Unconquered. The warlords struck back. Armies clashed across rivers and plains, iron against iron. Wudi fought in the vanguard, tireless, unyielding. Where his warriors faltered, he stood. Where they despaired, his voice rose. Stand. Do not yield. We are the storm that will not bow. The bond of the river dragon surged within him, his strikes carried the force of waves, his endurance that of stone. Yet it was not power alone that turned battles. It was his will, blazing like a beacon, binding thousands to him. Years of war followed. One by one, the warlords fell. The fortress of the north broke beneath his banners. The crimson rebellion of the east was drowned. The last rival, a king who styled himself the Sun Tyrant, fell in single combat upon the burning fields, his crown shattering beneath Wudi's fist. When the dust cleared, the land lay weary but free. The people cried out for a ruler, one not of bloodlines or silken courts, but of strength and endurance. Wudi resisted at first, he was a warrior, not a king. But he remembered Zhao Yun's words, together, wisdom and strength can forge destiny. And so, beneath the open sky where once he had sworn his oath to the stars, Wudi accepted. He was crowned not in gold, but in plain steel. His title was not emperor by birthright, but emperor of endless horizons, for his reign was born not of conquest, but of the unbroken will to stand when the world itself bent against him. In the years that followed, the empire healed. Roads were rebuilt, fields flourished, and justice replaced fear. Yet Wudi never forgot the boy in the bamboo grove, or the friend who had shown him the path of wisdom. At night, he often walked alone, gazing at the stars. I have stood, he would whisper. And I will continue to stand, for as long as my people need me. And the stars, ancient and endless, seemed to burn brighter in answer.